The dangers of shallow water blackout. There are multiple causes of shallow water blackout. Trained freedivers become good at ignoring their desire to breathe, can become very focused on a task, or can be reluctant to ruin a day's diving by releasing their weight belt. Also, having survived many previous freedives, some simply become overconfident. There are many factors and combinations of factors which are regularly seen that cause a diver who did not intend this freedive to be their last, to sadly perish. We know that human physiology changes over time. What the diver has grown accustomed to as normal may simply be beyond their ability to survive in certain extreme or unusual instances. In some cases blackout occurs without warning. In other cases, the severely hypoxic diver is incapable of manipulating their weight belt quick release mechanism. As the diver approaches the end of their dive, we believe that there is a profound change in their psychology. The diver simply cannot rely on their internal clock, or whatever mechanism tells them it is time to ascend. This is why well-trained, physically fit and often very experienced divers sometimes die with their weight belt still in place. Freedivers black out when the oxygen content in their brains drops below the level necessary to support consciousness. The brain is more sensitive to the lack of oxygen than other tissues. Furthermore, the way that blood retains oxygen favors a steady metering out of oxygen to the tissues during the first part of the dive. As a long freedive progresses, oxygen levels drop in the lungs. These levels drop even more sharply in the tissues. Rapidly decreasing levels of oxygen available to the brain sneak up on victims very rapidly, and many survivors of shallow water blackout simply do not recall the sensation of air hunger or an impending blackout. Blackouts among freedivers can be divided into three groups depending upon which part of the dive they occur in. 1. In static apnea blackout, the freediver dives to the bottom of a pool or body of water and blacks out without ever attempting to return to the surface. They may even be resting on the surface of the water in face-down position. These divers black out from lack of oxygen without some of the pressure compounding problems that ascending divers experience. 2. In shallow water blackout, the ascending diver's blood oxygen levels are low and the expanding lungs draw precious oxygen back from the blood instead of forcing oxygen into the blood as they do during descent. This form of blackout often happens before reaching the surface. Many of these divers lose control of their breath hold ability and observers have seen air leaking from their mouths. Unless the diver is very buoyant near the surface, the effects of air compression on the lungs and wetsuit, combined with the loss of air from the mouth, all increase the diver's tendency to sink back down. 3. The last and possibly the most insidious form of blackout is surface blackout. As the distressed diver ascends, the lungs expand, which in turn drops the oxygen pressure and actually draws oxygen from the blood in a vacuum effect. However, as long as the diver holds their breath, there is some oxygen pressure available to their blood. On the surface, the diver exhales. Almost instantly, what little oxygen pressure is left in the lungs disappears and the pressure within the chest decreases as well. Exhalation at the surface places the oxygen-depleted diver in potential jeopardy for two reasons. Firstly, the decrease in oxygen pressure in the lungs, and secondly, the decrease in the overall pressure within the chest. In order to avoid shallow water blackouts, you should of course follow the standard good freediving practices, which include the use of a buddy, proper surface intervals between dives, proper weighting, adequate preparation before each dive, rest, fitness and simple common sense.